Hi, it's me, Amanda Solar, the Soulful Connector. Let's face it, the only way to really connect with someone is to get real. So here we go. Let's connect.
Connection. Let's talk about connection. Let's talk about connection. Let's talk about it.
I just have to tell you, I heard the Christmas song. It is so pretty.
Thanks.
Jon Michaels, you don't talk about your voice correctly because you have such a beautiful singing voice. And when you talk, you almost kind of glide past that aspect of your music.
Well, I'm critical because I don't have the big soaring voice. I have a good singer-songwriter stylistic voice. And now with a little bit of help with auto tuning, because sometimes I can get a little pitchy if I'm not on right on. But I think I have a pleasing, I think I have a very distinctive, and if it's in a certain range, right, within,
Right.
what they call your comfort or your sweet spot, it's pleasant to the ear. But I don't have that big soaring voice. But thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. It's true. It sounds just so lovely. So, Jon Michaels, welcome to the Soulful Connections podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And I got to be connected with you through your recent song. First, let's back up and kind of talk about you're a singer, you're a songwriter, you're a businessman, and you were diagnosed with throat cancer.
Well, first off, yes, and for clarity and for clarifications, I was diagnosed with head and neck cancer. There is a difference in the sense that people develop throat cancer for a number of reasons. A lot of it can be bad habits, smoking, drinking, things of that nature. That wasn't a part of my makeup. I ended up getting the HPV virus, which is very common in women, and they get cervical
Mhm.
cancer. Farrah Fawcett, she developed HPV cancer. And the problem is that if you don't get it checked and get it checked early, then it can become problematic. So in my particular case, it was HPV related. And the reason that they now offer vaccines to children right around the age of 12, both boys and girls, are to prevent what ultimately happened to me. I tell people I drew the short straw, and that there are many strains of HPV, and most of us are able to expel it and deal with it just through our own immune system. But there are a few strains that end up turning into cancer, as in my case, usually 40 or 50 years after you've actually contracted the virus. Most of us, we don't even know we have it.
Right.
There's a few, and I was one of them. But now those few, when you look at the amount of baby boomers there are, and there's a lot of baby boomers that it's really hitting, it's now becoming epidemic. So it's happening. So I wanted to clarify that, yeah, I had throat cancer. Actually, there was a tumor on the back of my tongue, and a big mass developed right here where my
Wow.
lymph node is. And it took about 3 months to diagnose, but once they diagnosed it, they set the treatment. And that's what ultimately set me on the course of recovery, the battle, and ultimately the song that we are connected by.
Can I just ask, what was your life like just prior to that diagnosis?
I live in Lexington, South Carolina, which is a suburb of Columbia, and I'm married. Been married 20 years, and I have a daughter. She's 17, and I publish a magazine, and it's called Lexington Neighbors, and it's a local community neighborhood magazine, and I publish that. And so that was my activity, and I'd get up every day and work on the magazine. I'd make sales, and I'd, provide content, and then I would just go about my business. And music was a major part of my life. But now that I was a dad and a husband and have a mortgage and all of those things,
Right.
I had to take responsibility and get back into the corporate world, if you will, or to,
Right.
business. So just one morning I don't know, I can't exactly remember where I was, but I just remember scratching like this. And then all of a sudden I felt like a lump. It was like the size of an egg, and I knew something was wrong. But before that, as you asked, just every day working and providing for my family and writing music when I could. And like the Christmas song, I
I
had put
can't
that.
wait.
So all of those things I was doing. And that was my big interruption at that point. That,
Yeah. What an interruption.
yeah, it
So,
was.
can you describe what that experience was like? I mean, I know it's hard to kind of take such a big experience and whittle it down, but I know that that is a really hard cancer. Cancer is hard, but that's a really tough one. Can you describe a little bit about what that journey through treatment was like?
Yeah. After I finally came to my senses, men can be extremely procrastinated, when it comes to getting
Sure.
right. And I happen to have a brother-in-law who's a physician. He's an ophthalmologist, but he's still, obviously very, very knowledgeable. I told him about it, and he just kept on me. And it was right around this time in 2022. Okay. It was around this exact time. And he said, look, you got to go get checked. You got to go get checked. And I'd had this lump since maybe early August. So I've had it for 2 or 3 months.
Hmm.
To your listeners that are listening, this can pop up with anybody. So what I'm about to tell you is not just isolated to individuals that may smoke or whatever. This is something that can hit anybody. So going back to what I was saying, the journey immediately once I came to my senses and went and started getting checked was a series of CAT scans and visits to an ENT and those things. And it was coming back, the test they were doing, like, they did a biopsy and they did all of the stuff that you would expect. And it was coming back inconclusive. So they just couldn't tell. Maybe it was just a cyst. And right after Christmas, first couple weeks of January, I took a trip to Punta Cana with my wife and daughter. And when we came back, I had surgery and they removed that mass. It was like an egg. And it was a 4-hour surgery just to remove that. And they sent that to the pathology. And within a couple of days, I was notified and told to go to oncologist. And I went to an oncologist, and I'll never forget sitting in his office. Obviously, I was very nervous. My wife was with me. I just remember walking through the parking lot and then walking in, and you see all these people. They're very sick. It's not a fun place to be.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. Because we all kind of in our own minds, and sometimes we'll share what would it be like if we ended up having to get that
Yeah.
diagnosis. And so I knew I was, and I'm there because I know I've got it. I mean, it was, I'm not going to be there if it came back negative. So sitting in the waiting room, finally get into the room, and the doctor comes in, and the doctor's name was Elkanidi, Dr. Elkanidi. He's I want to say he was from either Syria or Egypt, but he does his residency here. He's been here a long time, but good guy. And he comes in and he says, "Look, I've got some bad news, and but I've got some good news too, right? Just like in the opening line of the song."
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there listening, and he said, "You've got cancer." And, even though you have it, to hear it finally coming back. And my wife and I were there, and I started to well up, right? The emotions start to come up. And he says, "Look, we can save you. Okay. This is something that we can do. What you have is something called, I want to say it's P16 negative. I may be quoting that wrong, but it's actually P16 positive, not negative." And he explained that the fact that its term is positive means that it's positive to treatment. He said that it's positive, so that means it will respond to treatment. But I need to tell you that this will be the hardest thing you've ever gone through. Of all the treatments that we have for cancer, this is the toughest, and it's going to be very difficult. And he didn't mince any words. He did say that I'll get through it. They'll get me through it, but it was going to be really hard. And then you got to process that, right? So
Yeah.
other than being told you got 6 months to live, now knowing that you're going to go through an amazing battle, it's going to be critical, is just very, very weird to process. So it was going to be about a month before we start treatment. And he told me that the treatment was going to be radiation every day on my throat area and chemotherapy. And he told me that one of the side effects of the chemo is hearing loss. And of course, I said, hearing loss. I said, that would be temporary, right? He goes, no, that will be permanent.
Wow.
So, and I said, what about my singing voice? And he said, well, we'll do everything we can, but you've got cancer. That's our main concern right now. And he said that the radiation is going to be the most difficult part of this. We can load you up with drugs to combat the nausea and all of the other side effects that you'll experience with chemo, but the radiation it's progressive. So you're going to get it every day for 35 days, 35 treatments. You'll get a reprieve on the weekends. You won't have to come in on Saturday or Sunday, but you'll come in Monday through Friday, and you'll get on the table, and we're going to radiate you basically. He said it's cumulative. So for the first couple of weeks, you probably won't notice anything, but starting on the third week and then fourth week and fifth week, it will get progressively harder and harder until the last treatment, which is the seventh week. And then after that, it's really hard. And it was. I couldn't walk. I mean, I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't sleep. It was torture and crazy. So I lost 60 pounds in 7 weeks, I should tell you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, was drinking Boost, but I could only get down one, maybe two in a day because it just took forever. And I had to take, pain pills. And then the pain pills progressively got stronger. And then I ended up going on to opioids. And then from opioids, I had to take fentanyl. And we all know about the dangers
Wow.
of that.
Yeah.
It was definitely monitored, and they assured me that under the conditions that I would be taking this stuff, that I would not become addicted. But it was a trying time. It was a trying time for my wife, but it was also a journey of experiencing some of the things that I've never experienced in life, like people coming together and helping me get through this, and prayers, people praying for me all over. I mean, I have a fan base that's, all over the world, and people were writing. I did post it on Facebook. I let everybody know what I was about to undergo, and people were coming out. They were sending me things. I'd look out my window and people were mowing my lawn. People were dropping off food. People were calling. One of my friends, his name is Alan Wasserman. He's an actor in LA. He called me every day with a joke just to
Oh,
keep, laughing for that little bit of time. So all those little things. Ultimately, as a songwriter and as a singer, people know me for really trying to go deep with my music. I have the fun stuff and just the generic kind of stuff. But for me, I really like to write very personable things, experiences, which a lot of us do. But I'm definitely one that goes in that direction. And as I started to recover, I knew that I wanted to say thank you to the people that came to be with me in any way that they could. And I wanted to write something. And then when I started to think about the idea behind this particular song that ultimately is what's bringing us together, I was talking to a friend, Edie Weinstein. Edie and I met at when I used to play at the Gilda's Club. I used to entertain people there in Bucks County, and I met Edie there, and we were talking. This was before my first treatment, but after my diagnosis, and I was a little bit angry. I wouldn't say a little bit. I was pretty pissed off, but pissed off in the sense of just great. Well, I'm sure I'll get a lot of thoughts and prayers. Big deal, and more of a kind of a being a little cynical, right? Thoughts and
sure.
prayers. Edie blurted out in the conversation. She didn't blurt it out. It was just part of her, what she replied to my position, the way I was thinking. She just said, Jon, you have to let the people that love you, which was just a beautiful thought. I'd never heard it put that way. Like your wife and your daughter and your friends, they're all going to love you in their own way, but you got to let them love you. And that kind of stayed with me. And when I was finally thinking about writing this particular song, that title seemed like the most beautiful idea and title to go with. I sat down, started to write it, And then I called a buddy of mine who was kind of like my Bernie Taupin. I'm, his Elton John. He's my Bernie Taupin. And we finished the song. And then I made a pilgrimage back to Nashville with my buddies, brought my friends together. And I hope you're going to play it for everybody. But this is what we ultimately came up with. And the song is titled, Let the People Who Love You Love You.
John, I think I'll pause and I'll play that now, and then we'll listen to it and then talk after.
I've got bad news and good news. The doctor said it's cancer, and I swear it took my breath. And with my wife holding my hand, he said, you can be saved. We'll take care of the science, you take care of the faith. Let the people who love you. Let the people who care, care. Don't try to stop them, just take it all in, every thought and prayer. Children of God are calling, your tears tell you they're true. So let the people who love you like a soldier surrounded, losing hope. The battle was raging, taking its toll. Then on my mirror I found a note. Daddy, God's not through with you. It remains there to remind me just what love can do. Let the people who love you. Let the people who care, care. Don't try to stop them, just take it all in, every thought and prayer. Children of God are calling, your tears tell you they're true. So let the people who love you be your army of angels. They want to, so let them. Let the people who love you love you. Let the people who care, care. Don't try to stop them, just take it all in, every thought and prayer. Children of God are calling, your tears tell you they're true. So let the people who love you, let them love you, let them love you, let them love you.
What a beautiful song.
Thank you.
So I loved your beautiful singing voice. And what a message. I feel like it's a really important message. What struck you? Why, out of all of the things that you probably were called upon to deal with through this journey, fear and strength and resilience and hope and courage. Why this message, do you think? Why did this resonate with you so much?
In looking back, I remember one of my other doctors, my ENT, Dr. King, and I love that man. He really is a hero. I remember him saying to me, we were having conversations in his office, and he took out his phone and he started playing John Prine on his phone. This was during an actual visit. And for those of your listeners, most of them probably know who John Prine is. And I didn't know this, but he was playing one of John's songs. And I know of John very well. And he said, you probably don't know this, but John had HPV cancer just like you did.
Wow.
And he's singing, So he said, you're going to have to find positivity. You're going to have to find the gratitude and the graciousness to get through this. You can't go through this angrily. You have to go through this with a sense of belief and with strength and a certain sense of positivity. It's going to hurt. You're not going to be able to get away with that, but you've got to come through it, believing that you're going to get through it. And then I remembered that. I remember that I was going to have to pull the faith, right? And it's interesting, when I say faith, I believe in God. I'm not a religious guy, but I'm a very spiritual person. And I just remembered that. And as I saw my friends coming to be with me, whether they were driving me, if my wife couldn't take me and they were driving me or sitting with me or any of those things, I just remember that. So when I started to think about the song, it's real. I mean, it's exactly what happened. And, I broke down and cried on several occasions, sometimes by myself, sometimes with my daughter sitting next to me.
Oh, nice.
And I knew I was going to be okay, but it was hard. And when you can't sleep and everybody's sleeping and I'm sleeping in another room or my wife is sleeping in another room and I don't want to gross your listeners out, but you're hacking and it's really bad. That attitude, I can get through this. I've got to get through this. And one morning, I think it was like right after I cried, I got up to go to the bathroom. It was probably 7 o'clock. And my daughter had gone into the bathroom and posted all those notes on the mirror. She had started posting little Post-it notes in my mirror.
Wow.
And one of them was, Dad, God's not done with you yet. And get you all emotional.
Wow.
It was, I left him there. And they're still up there now, believe it or not. They're still there now, even a year and a half later. Just because it was, it was a moving moment. So those lines in the song that you hear really, really happened. Now, as far as crafting the song, I knew that I wanted to have a yin and yang, right? And the yin would be some of the darker side, right? The cancer, things of that nature. But the chorus, I wanted it to be very positive. Even melodically, I wanted it to have a really kind of, I'm trying to look at the right way to describe this, but the chorus, it's just very full. It's easy to follow. It's, they're chords and it's a melody that is really easy to embrace. And it crescendos and it's like a blossoming flower. And it's like the darkness, but then back into the light, the beautiful light. And I knew that was my approach. So when I started constructing the song, I started to find a particular pattern that I liked I was very happy once I got it done. And then when I was working with my co-writer, Paul Jefferson, we would go back and forth and we would ping pong with ideas. I'll say something and then he'll say, well, what if we did it this way? And then he'll say something. I go, what about this? Things of that nature. And we're looking for creative lines. Like one of my lines that I really enjoyed that when it came out, I said, this is good, is we'll take care of the science. You take care of the faith. For me, I thought that was a wonderful way of describing the conversation I had with the doctor. We're going to do what we have to do, but you got to do what you got to do. And all of those things. And then we went back and forth about how to do the second verse and what we were going to say. And I started telling Paul, I said, one of the most moving moments of the entire journey was when I saw those notes on the mirror. And he himself was starting to get a little emotional, which people will do, because I hear people tell me they start crying when they hear this
Yeah.
song. And so we just ended up articulating that particular event into the song, and that, the whole art, let the people be your army of angels. They want to, so let them. And that all just it all worked in such a nice way. And what we got is what we got. And it took on a little bit of magic, not a little, a lot, because when I went to Nashville and I recorded it, uh, and I wanted the song to have that real choral effect, which was what we did. And I was talking about this magic. The song was produced by my buddy Jim Kimball, and Jim is he is Reba McEntire's main uh, player in her band,
Oh,
and he's done
wow.
a lot of great things. Jim is an amazing guitar player, and so we recorded the tracks in another studio, and then I took those tracks to his studio, and then I did my vocals, and then after I did my vocals, then the sax player came in, and then basically how that worked was we played it for him. He was sat in the booth, and I told him, I said, I want you to start on this note and hold this note for, let's say, 8 bars, and then I want you to take off. Just do whatever you feel. And that's exactly what he did. And it just has attitude, and it has, don't forget, there's anger in this,
Right.
there's all of those emotions, and that takes that. And it's also, for people that are listening to it, they really like that. It's a nice contrast.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I digress for 1 second and ask a little bit about how your songwriting experience? Can you kind of just share a little bit about that part of you, that songwriting journey?
Yeah.
Um,
I wrote my first song when I was probably 10, because I couldn't play the songs on the guitar that you see that or that in the radio.
oh,
So,
yeah.
I just started just playing around. I was maybe 10 or 11. My sister, Lori, taught me my first few chords, and then my older brother, Bill, he taught me a couple chords. And I was maybe 11 or 12. And I remember I learned the song Blowing in the Wind. And this is a very cute story. I finally mustered up enough courage to go up to one of my teachers at my sixth grade school, and he used to bring his guitar and play for us. And I used to ask him, and I finally asked him, could I come and sing with you one time? And he was like, of
Wow.
course you can. I was like, I'm in sixth grade,
That's
right?
pretty brave.
So I thought I was just going to sing for my classmates. And so the day came, and I got up and I sang Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan. And the teacher brought all of the kids in my sixth grade, to hear me sing
Oh, that's
with
great.
him. Well, yeah, it was nerve-wracking.
It's
And
nerve-wracking, but what a great teacher. You know what I
well,
mean?
it was fun. So I'm singing Blowing in the Wind, and all right, it went great, and the kids were all loving and caring and wonderful for sixth graders. But I'll never forget the next day, and I love this. I'm sitting at a table eating my lunch. I think I'm sitting there by myself, and the prettiest girl in the whole school comes up and says, "Can I sit with you and have lunch with you?" And she then started gushing about, me singing, and it was pretty much written right then and there that
That was it.
that was it. Ask guys, I promise you, if you ask most guys, why did you learn how to play guitar? They're all going to tell you to meet girls. And so it's so funny. So at that point, I started writing, making up my own stuff. And then when I got into high school, I entered the high school talent show, and I'll be darned, I won the whole city talent show with a song I wrote. And it
Wow.
was like 16, 17. And then from there, I got a job working at a place called the Great American Food and Beverage Company, and then Poppy Star. These were out in Los Angeles. And you had to
Oh,
audition
right. You grew up in LA, right?
in
Okay,
LA.
right.
So I was a singing waiter. So I would, bus tables or wait tables, and then I'd go up on stage and I'd play. And so it was that. And then 17 or 18, I realized that this was something that I really wanted to do. So I formed the Jon Michaels band, and we played up and down, the California for a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years. I did things differently. I didn't just put together a band. I was working during the day. You mentioned that I was a businessman. Rather than, once I left waiting tables, I actually got my license to sell securities, right? Investment securities. I took my Series 7 and everything. So during the day, I would do that to make money. And then at night, I'd take my band and we'd go play. And
Interesting.
we did all originals, which was really, I wasn't doing a top 40 gig. I wasn't.
Yeah,
So I would always get gigs around town doing the Jon Michaels project. And that was a lot harder because it just was. And
sure.
I wasn't getting signed. It's very difficult. And that, through my 20s, that's what I did. And then when I was 30, right around 30, I had never been to Nashville. And I'd seen stuff out of Nashville, but I was kind of putting Nashville and Hee Haw in the same boat.
See.
Hee Haw was a fun show, but it was very corny and campy and cheesy, the songs and that kind of stuff. But I went there just for a visit for a week. And oh my God, it was everything that LA wasn't. And there was a camaraderie, there was a community. You could play literally in so many places. You didn't have to drive forever. It was all encapsulated into a nice little area. And they were all guitar players like me, singer-songwriters. And I came back and I was married at the time, not to who I'm married with now, but I was married for a couple of years back then. And I just said, look, I think I can make this work and I really want to go. And she really wasn't interested in going, but we were married and I was kind of adamant that I really wanted to do this. So we did. And she was not happy and she left about 3 months there. She decided to just come back. But at that point, our marriage was over. I spent the next 15, 20 years as a single guy, just working hard at writing. And I never was able to get a deal, a writing deal or a record deal. I just didn't have what the look and some of the things that they were looking for country artists. But as somebody who just doesn't take no for an answer and everything else, I was able to get things done. For example, they told me, when I say people in the business, don't expect anything for at least 10 years. Okay. So it didn't matter. I had my first single 3 years after I got,
Really?
yeah, a big time single. And it made the top 40. And it was a song called Check Please. And then I had another song that was in an NBC movie of the week. And then I co-wrote the theme song for the Tennessee Titans radio network. And then I had other hits, other songs that I wrote with other artists and other songwriters. I have a song called Stones that was recorded by several. I think it's been recorded 10 or 11 times. It's just a very amazing song. And then I met my wife, Jeannie, in Nashville at a music party, and we dated for 4 years. And I finally proposed, and that was around 2005. We got married, and 2008, we moved to where I live now, Lexington, South Carolina. And shortly after I moved here, somebody dared me to write a theme song for the Today Show. The Today Show was having a contest asking America to write their theme song. And I told my friend I don't do contests. And she says, well, like, what else? You have nothing to do. Let's just do something. So I did. I got together with another co-writer friend of mine, Dinah Bryan, and we wrote this little ditty. And I sang it in my kitchen, and I sent it off to New York. And lo and behold, I got called and said I was one of the finalists. They flew me to New
Wow.
York. And David Foster, the 16-time Grammy Award
Yeah.
winner, he was the judge. And when the dust settled, I was the winner.
Oh, that's
And
really awesome.
so that was cool. And so I joke around and I always say to people, I have just enough success to make me miserable. But
Right. I get that.
everybody wants the big one, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I want the big one. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Music has changed. It's really a very sad thing about the creativity is being really raped. I don't know else what the word to use, but it's just being raped by AI and by Spotify and people. You don't get paid anymore. You don't get royalties.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So I'm making do, but my songwriting is a passion. I don't do it just to make money. So I do this to create. I still perform. I go out now and I perform I'll perform for retirement communities and for, I'll go to the hospitals. Those kind of things. That's a little long and short of it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I really think it's a world that most people don't know anything about. Another question that I was thinking about is how were you changed by that experience of cancer?
Well, like so many, I was humbled. I was realizing how fallible I really was. I mean,
Mhm.
right? I would sit there and get my chemo treatments, and I knew that the person I was sitting with wasn't going to make it, but yet they were
Mhm.
still there taking the treatments. But it was just prolonging the inevitable because they were terminal. That was really, I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel for me.
Yeah.
And so it was very humbling. And again, I didn't realize that many people love me. I really didn't. And if I ever really want to bring myself out of the rut, I can just read some of the posts that people were making about me. And there's a line in the song of the chorus, your tears tell you they're true. And I remember when Paul, he came up with that line, and I said, your tears tell you they're true. Basically what we're saying there is very simple. Those tears that are coming down your cheeks from what people are saying, they're saying that because they love you. Because
Mhm.
they can say thoughts and prayers or just hit a like button or whatever. But if they're taking the time to tell you how they really feel, it's pretty awesome. And I'm one of the lucky ones because I get a
Yeah.
second chance. I wanted to write something that could be used universally without it necessarily totally being 100% my story. Because so many people have that moment where the doctor says, I got bad news for you, but the good news, we're going to try to get you through it, and whether it's my kid coming to the rescue with loving notes on the mirror or just sitting with me or other people, their experiences of their loved ones doing the same thing, we can all identify with those moments. And so it's good to know that it's like, it's not just my song. I hope that it's embraced, that everybody can accept it for their experience and their story.
Yes.
And, I'm going to throw it out to the universe because that's what I want to do. Just recently, did you watch any of the World Series?
I'm the worst person to ask. I didn't,
Okay. Well,
but
the reason I bring that up is because it was the third game. It was either the third or fourth game, but I think it was the third game. It was in New York at Yankee Stadium. And I think it was like between the fourth and the fifth inning. It's just incredible. It was the Dodgers and the Yankees. And I am in LA, born and raised. So seeing the Dodgers and the Yankees is pretty cool. So it's silent in the stadium. I mean, it's filled, right? And the camera pans down to the infield, and all the players like are on the third base line and the first base line, and the umpires are in the middle, and everybody's standing, and including the entire 50 or 60,000 people in attendance are all standing, and it's quiet, and they're all holding up a card, chest high. And in the middle is a blank spot where that individual who's holding the card wrote a name of somebody that was either affected by cancer or somebody that had
wow.
died from cancer. And for the next 5 minutes, the cameras were panning literally everybody in the stadium. I mean, we're talking the players and the umpires,
Wow.
and everybody had this card. And literally by the end of it, tears were rolling down my face because I got it. And it
Yeah.
was, and the organization was Stand Up to Cancer. It is headed up, I believe the main person is Katie Couric. And that's exactly the kind of campaign that I would let the people who love you to be a part of. So
Yeah.
I'm throwing it out there to the universe through your podcast. So Katie, if you are one of the listeners to this or it gets back to you, check out Let the People Who Love You, because I think that it would be a beautiful marriage of our commitments to this terrible, terrible disease that's out there.
Jon, thank you so much. As we wrap up, I just want to share with anyone listening that at the end of this podcast, there's going to be a surprise that has to do with when we're putting this podcast out. So listen in because you have something special for our listeners?
People can find this material on my website at jonmichaelsmusic.com, and that's JONMICHAELS music.com. It is also available on all the streaming channels, Spotify, Pandora. So I hope that if you enjoyed what you heard, you'll seek out the song. Let the people who love you love you. You can that if you go to my website or you actually go to YouTube. I just uploaded it to YouTube with the lyrics so that you can listen to it. You can go to my website for any of the other songs. And I'm also a performer. So if you have an event that you think that somebody like myself with a really unique story to talk about, both talking and music, look me up. And I travel all over to do shows. And I want to do a lot more. So I'm available if it's something that you feel would be a good fit.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Ho, 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 the season is here. Boys and girls know Saint Nick is near. Winterland cards line the mantle with warm regards. It's Christmas. Merry Christmas. Put on your muffs, mittens and scarf. Tie the tree up to the top of the car. Let's all sing along to Nat King Cole and Burl Ives songs. It's Christmas. Merry Christmas. This evening we're hoping to hear hoof claps on rooftops from flying reindeer. Though seldom seen, close your eyes and dream. The magic of Christmas comes tonight. Sleep tight. Ho, 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 Christmas is here. With ribbons and bows and smiles ear to ear. And among the gifts you receive, may you find your world is at peace. 'Cause it's Christmas. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. And to every one of us, Merry Christmas.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a valued part of the SolFul community. Thank you to William Aronson for writing, recording, and producing the SolFul Connections theme song. And finally, always know you're not alone. We are connected. We're all in this thing together. And you and your story are important. Let's just keep on connecting.